Yes, we doing what the word say. Obey. Yes, we doing what the word say. Obey.
Hello, my name is Robbie. On here, I am Templar Knight. Every person who believes in God but does not attend a church has a story why. But it's said that whenever two or more people gather in God's name, that He is there. So this is church. Welcome. I'm glad you're here. Tonight, continuing with our Obey series about the Ten Commandments, we're kind of taking a slight pit stop. We're detouring off because last week we talked about adultery. And after the lesson, the conversation quickly turned to divorce. And although it is very keenly related, I just wasn't quite prepared for it. And we had a great conversation afterward, but there were a few things that I wanted to touch on. I didn't have the Bible verses ready, and so I took some time this week, and I prepared to give a more firm explanation about divorce and where it falls in the Bible and in a modern Christian relationship. So I'm going to start with some Bible verses. They're not going to be on screen because they're really, really long, and it's a lot of words. So I'm just going to read through it, and we'll just go from there. So the very first one that I found was in Matthew 19, verse 3 through 19. Again, a lot of words here, but I couldn't find a way to just cut out the key parts. So now this was Matthew talking about an interaction that Jesus had with some Pharisees. So one day, the Pharisees were badgering Jesus. They asked him, "Is it legal for a man to divorce his wife for any reason?" Now mind you, these were the religious leaders of the time. They're just kind of trying to pester Jesus, to try and catch him slipping, to get him to mess up, to prove he's not who he says he is. So they're asking him the hard questions. So Jesus answers them. He says, "Haven't you read in your Bible that the Creator originally made man and woman for each other, male and female? And because of this, a man leaves his father and mother and is firmly bonded to his wife, becoming one flesh, no longer two bodies, but one. Because God created this organic union between the two sexes, no one should desecrate his art by cutting them apart." So the Pharisees respond. They shot back in rebuttal. "If that is so, why did Moses give instruction for divorce papers and divorce procedures?" Now mind you, Moses was the one who was originally given the Ten Commandments. So they are again referring to the old rules, the original laws, the original covenant. Jesus came with the new rules. And Jesus said to them, "Moses provided for divorce as a concession to your hard-heartedness. But it is not part of God's original plan. I'm holding you to the original plan and holding you liable for adultery if you divorce your faithful wife and then marry someone else. I make an exception in cases where the spouse has committed adultery." So what is he saying here? And again, bunch of church words, bunch of Bible talk. I love the message because it is easier to understand. But what is he really saying? Well, he's telling these people that God intended for man and woman to marry and for that to be permanent. Now there was one exception, and that was adultery. Now in biblical days, not as big of an issue because back in the day, if you committed adultery, if a woman committed adultery, she was stoned. Didn't survive that. So adultery was much more serious than we seem to have it now. So you didn't really have to plan, or you didn't really have to have a concern about divorce, because if your spouse committed adultery, you were about to become a widow. And that was the one exception that Jesus made. He says that if you were to leave your spouse If they are faithful and you leave them anyway, now you are committing adultery because you promised. You were married. You can't just leave your spouse to be with someone else. And again, this adultery thing is such a big deal. The sexual purity between a husband and wife matters so much. That is the one thing that will destroy a marriage faster than anything else. That's why I constantly talk about how it is so important to prevent these things from happening, to stop it before it becomes an issue. Not just the physical relationship, but mentally, emotionally, getting connected to other people. That's step 1. Maybe adultery is like step 7 or 8. But when you first take that first step, you've already started down a path that you need to turn back from. So I'm going to read one more long-winded script and then we'll get out. This is it's from 1 Corinthians. Now, the book of Corinthians, Paul, one of Jesus' disciples, he wrote these letters and they then became books of the Bible. So this is 1 Corinthians in the Message, chapter 7, verse 10 through 17. If you are married, stay married. This is the master's command, not mine. Now that was Paul making sure they knew that this isn't just something he's saying. Jesus said this. He was known as their master. So he's making it clear to them, no, I'm not the one saying you can't get divorced. Jesus said this. And then he gets a little more specific. If a wife should leave her husband, she must either remain single or else come back and make things right with him. And a husband has no right to get rid of his wife. For the rest of you who are in mixed marriages, Christian married to non-Christian, we have no explicit command from the master. So this is what you must do. If you are a man with a wife who is not a believer, but who still wants to live with you, hold on to her. If you are a woman with a husband who is not a believer, but he still wants to live with you, hold on to him. The unbelieving husband shares to an extent in the holiness of his wife. And the unbelieving wife is likewise touched by the holiness of her husband. I'm going to break that down because that was a lot of big words, and honestly, I don't like the way they phrase that. What they're saying there is, okay, you're a Christian and you've married a non-Christian. That is not cause to leave. Hold on to them because you never know when God is going to use you. You never know when your faith is going to shine through to your spouse and they're going to be like, you know, I knew that you were about this God thing, but I didn't understand it. And now that we've been married and I've spent all this time with you, I understand it now, and I need God too. Now granted, in most cases, you'll find that Christians tend to marry Christians. It's not that common to find mixed marriages, as they say. We think of that term as something completely different now. But back in the day, it wasn't so common. So they tell you don't leave your person just because they're not Christian. Or likewise, what if you were both Christian and now one of you has lost faith? They say to hang on, witness to them, keep preaching, help them discover their love for God again. Sorry, I completely went off the book there. So we carry on. On the other hand, if the unbelieving spouse walks out, you've got to let him or her go. You do not have to hold on desperately. God has called us to make the best of it, as peacefully as we can. You never know. Wife, the way you handle this may bring your husband back not only to you, but back to God. And you never know. Husband, the way you handle this might bring your wife back, not only to you, but to God. Don't be wishing you were someplace else with someone else. Where you are right now is God's place for you. Live and obey and love and believe right there. God, not your marital status, defines your life. Don't think I'm being harder on you than any others. Paul's telling them, I give this same counsel to all churches. So how many of you read between the lines there? As a Christian, are we allowed to get divorced? We are. As a last-ditch effort. See, I was thinking about how to explain this in a way that makes sense. And where does my head go? Cars. So I got a new car. It's shiny, it's fancy. I really enjoy it. But I have to share it with my wife. I drive it most of the time, she drives it sometimes. But we have different driving styles. And after some years, this car has started to have some wear and tear. Now mind you, we are getting our regular oil changes, we're checking the tires, getting them rotated. We are doing what we need to do to maintain our vehicle. But over time, the car just kind of starts to break. I take a turn too fast. I hit a mailbox, scratches up the fender, puts a little ding in the hood. She doesn't shift properly and burns out the clutch. Well, that's not true. My wife's probably better. Anyway, it's an analogy. We both have this car. Well, now let's say I've decided... No, I'll be the bad guy in this one. Let's say my wife has decided that she really likes this car, and she plans to keep it. But we've had this car for 10 years now, and I'm ready for something shiny and new. All the stuff that's going wrong in this car, it gets a funny smell if the air conditioner runs too long. I don't like it. Instead of trying to fix it, I just sit and fester on it. My wife notices it. She's trying to fix it. Sometimes we have to jumpstart the car if it sits idle for too long. I just get frustrated by it. My wife notices she wants to fix this, but I'm not trying real hard. She's doing what she can. I'm not. See, I've already seen the new cars on the lot. I know what else is out there. And instead of trying to repair what we've got and hang on to it, I just want to move on to something new. That is about as blatantly clear as an analogy as I can come up with. My wife cannot save our car if I'm not even trying anymore. Same goes for a marriage. You cannot save your marriage just you fighting alone. If it gets to that point where your marriage is falling apart and one person just desperately wants out and there's nothing you can do to bring them back, no matter how hard you try, they've just set their mind. It doesn't matter how good you are, how much you care for them, how much you love them. They're not responding. They're already gone. Emotionally, they're not in it anymore. Mentally, they're not in it anymore. Sexually, they might not be into it anymore. If if they have given up on your marriage, I know I have to say it, but I don't want to. I'm so stuck on the thought that it's never too late. But at that point, it's no longer in your hands. Because at that point, your spouse hasn't only given up on your marriage, they've given up on their faith. And why do I say that? Because if they are willing to turn their back on their promise and not fight for it, they're not in a good way with God. Clearly, they are struggling with something far deeper than just being in a marriage they want out of. And I know I always say marriage is about three people: you, your spouse, and God. But when you and God are the only ones fighting for it, if that other person is doing their best to break free, it says in the Bible to let them go. I have to scroll back up and find that and read that again because I hate saying that. Okay, so that was Corinthians. 1 Corinthians chapter 7, verse 15. On the other hand, if the unbelieving spouse walks out, you have got to let him or her go. You don't have to hold on desperately. God has called us to make the best of it as peacefully as we can. Then it goes on to say that in hoping that our actions I've got this weird thought that it's never too late to fix anything. I don't know. I think we are going to switch over to the chat screen. And I'm curious, what are your guys' thoughts? I know it is something that I struggle with. The blonde thinks we focus so much on the black and white, and we refuse to see that sometimes there's a gray area. She truly believes that there are circumstances that God even knows where it falls in gray areas. Yeah, to me, divorce has never been an option. That was the way I was brought up, but I was raised different. And I've known great Christian leaders who have gotten a divorce. And it's always baffled me because it's always kind of, why couldn't you fix it? But it takes two people. It takes both of you to fix the marriage. I don't know. I struggle with tonight's lesson. They always focus on when one of the people commit adultery, that's when it's okay. So I guess that's the stance I have to take. But I've seen couples where there has been adultery and they came back from it. So I'm not saying that just because someone cheats means they're out. Doesn't mean just give up. And here I go contradicting myself because I've seen both ends of it. And of course they always say if there's physical violence, get out. And that always baffles me because I didn't grow up in a house where physical violence was a thing. All the violence I had in my life was violence I went out and found. I've never been hit by someone who cared about me. Outside of little spankings I got as a kid that I always deserved. Hey Amy, how we doing? If you're in a relationship and you find that it's really no good for you, just toxic relationship. Yeah, agree, Jay. And therein lies the kicker. Do you find out that this relationship, do you take the time to find out the relationship is toxic before you marry this person? And again, I've got that easy because I spent 4 years deciding if this was the woman I wanted to marry. I had plenty of time to find out how great she was for me. Yeah, Amy, shoot, what's your question? Alright, Grandma says you can't always fix everything, and you can try to find that person who's already called it quits and move on to someone else. Save your sanity and move on. We tried for about 2 weeks, and then we got a phone call from the other woman. I was raised to not give up either, but after violence and cheating happens, yeah. Lon says, I have been personally hit by someone that supposedly cared about me. Not blind. Good deal. But I think that is also where I can see people leaving or divorcing. Arranged marriages. How do I feel about divorce in that situation? Interesting. I'm just curious. I don't know for sure. Do arranged marriages still happen? Do they? Cool. I mean, I've never seen much about modern day arranged marriages outside of, like, I know some religious groups still do it. And I'm curious what they're, and I don't think as Christians we really fall in line with arranged marriages. Yeah, that's very interesting. In an arranged marriage, I guess the same rules would apply. It would require both people to try and either save it or salvage it, or save it or scrap it. And if one of them is just giving up and wants out, yeah. I'm curious, Amy, do you know someone who has been in an arranged marriage? Just curious. Yeah, the one, and you know, if we're going to talk about modern day arranged marriage, let's talk about the people who get married simply because they got pregnant. These high school kids who are getting pregnant their senior year and deciding they have to get married for the kid. Do not get married for the kid. Get married because you love this person and you want to spend the rest of your life with them. Do not stay married for the kid. Sometimes if a husband and wife hate each other and they despise each other, they're doing more damage to that child. I hate the for the kid excuse, which is why I keep throwing it up there. Stop that. That excuse has always bothered me. I've known people who got married for the kid, and it was just so destructive. And then there's Jay. Jay is thoroughly enjoying his time playing Ark. I love the new emotes, buddy. I think it circles back to belief in God and your spouse. These relationships that are mired in these physical and emotional issues circle around to one another. Oh, I gotta scroll for a sec. You're gonna lose that. The spouse is not truly believing in God. You can say the words all you want, but until you believe in them and do what they say, are you really in the faith, or just label yourself as such? Oh, Blind's dropping some fire tonight. That is solid, Blind. In those cases, You do not have a duty to remain steadfast because this person does not want you in reality. Dang, I want to copy paste that because that is something solid that I want to go over on later and just read through again. That is some big words there, Blind. I mean, bravo, sir. I'm posting that in my or where can I post that? I'm posting that in Celebrations just because, yeah, that's where I need it. Hope you don't mind. I'm going to go over that one more time and then I'll try and catch up with chat. I think it circles back to belief in God by your spouse. These relationships that are mired in these physical and emotional issues circle around to one of the spouses not truly believing in God. You can say the words all you want, but not until you believe them and do what they say are you really in faith, or just labeled yourself as such. That's solid, Blind. I am thoroughly impressed. I was told by my first spouse that he wanted out. And the reason was that I loved him too much and I suffocated him. How do you feel about that reason? That kind of sparks back to that part in the Bible where it says sometimes you just gotta let them go. No matter how hard you try, you can't fix everything. And I think that is a prime example of it. Despite how much you smothered and you loved him too much, he just wasn't in it anymore. And there was nothing you could do to turn him back. Most arranged marriages are of different beliefs. So if a person divorced and found that God would still... Most arranged marriages are of different religions, I believe. So if that person divorced and found that God would still be looked on as bad, well, in all fairness, if they're of a different religion, they probably don't care too much about what God thinks. Oh, if they found God, would it still be looked on as bad? No. I can 100% say no on that one. Because that's like breaking a rule that you didn't know was a rule. And Jesus forgives us of our sins, should we ask. So in the process of finding God and coming to the Lord, one of the key things in that is accepting that Jesus died for your sins, that he took that upon himself so that we can be clean, which means everything you've done before that doesn't matter anymore. So 100%, why would God focus on this small speck of dirt that landed upon your shoulder when you have just been washed clean? So yeah, he wouldn't care one bit. I'm sorry, see, chat's going on faster than I am. Don't stay together for the kids, but please, if you can make it work for the kids, make it work. If you hadn't had them, staying together does more harm. Yeah, and that is very solid, Amy. It's so hard because you can see people who they hate their marriage but they love their children. And you can see how sometimes it's on both sides. Sometimes it's better for the kids if they get divorced and they act like responsible adults and move on, but still love their child. Other times they can make it work. And in all fairness, my best friend got married when his wife was 8 months pregnant. And sorry if you hear this, bud, but we didn't think it was going to last. We were worried. Back when that happened, I remember talking with one of our other friends, and we were scared for him. because we thought he was just getting married because she got pregnant. But you know what? They made it work. They have now been happily married for 20 years. They've now been married 20 years next month. They have 3, well, goofball but cool kids. And they made it work. They have a good life together. And I was wrong. Alright, I need to caught up. Hi, I'm Blind. I went to seminary for school because I thought I wanted to be a pastor. Hi, Blind. I'm Templar. Alright. Trying to catch up here. You can't fix stupid, and you're using your suffocating me excuses. Your suffocating me excuse to get out of marriage is stupid. You're right, Amy. It was a flash. Blind, if you ever want to have those sparks of genius and just drop some serious fact, I'm here for it, man. For those of you who don't know, Blind is one of the pillars of our community. He is the calm, stable, big brother type. I mean, granted, I'm older than him, but that's just the aura he puts off. He's a great husband. He's a great father. And he's prone to every now and then. What you said just blew my mind. Did I just call Blind calm and stable? Yes, I did, and I stand behind it. Because, yeah, I've seen him play those rage-inducing games and get upset and stuff. But at no point in time do I ever worry that Blind is going to get actually upset and do or say something to hurt his wife. Do or say something to hurt his child. Blind is a strong pillar in our community, in his family. He is a role model. So yeah, I mean, he can play that rage game and get upset and talk smack up and down about the other team all he wants. But when it comes to it, he's solid. He is a good role model in our community, and I am very grateful to have him in my life. Whew. And on that note, what I missed? Oh, Grandma. Okay, not to go off topic. Not to go off topic. Could I have everyone give a real little prayer that my injections go well and that it works? No, Grandma, that is not off topic. Not at all. Just really nervous. You're hoping you can get rid of the pain. Yeah, call me. I will be sitting by my phone. Call me beforehand. Call me after. Call me whenever you want. You could call me right now if you want. I'll see it happen. I might put you on speakerphone so you can talk to everybody, though. Yeah, Grandma, you call me whenever you need to, and yeah, we will 100% be praying for you on Wednesday. For those of you who don't know, Grandma has been struggling with a lot of pain for entirely too long. And the doctors have decided that getting an injection will hopefully help fix the problem. So, that's happening Wednesday. And yeah, Grandma, reach out. Let me know.